notable visitors with us, and specifically, I think 38 student teachers and teachers from the Shortwood Teachers College in St. Andrew. I want to welcome you to the sitting of the Senate and to recognize the contribution that the institution, Shortwood Teachers College, has made to the development of Jamaica, in particular to recognize the contribution that you all have made to the educational institutions by the training of teachers in whom the future of the country through its children, their future are in the hands of excellent teachers like you. And on behalf of the Senate, I recognize you, welcome you, and invite you to come and spend time with us at any sitting. You're always welcome. It is in fact your Senate and your Parliament. I think that as I'm speaking, we are being joined by some students from, is it Iona High? That's the school? Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. I was just welcoming the teachers from Shortwood Teachers College. So I welcome you to the Senate and briefly repeat the words of welcome. This is your Parliament, and you're always welcome here at any time to observe the proceedings. So welcome, and if I don't get a chance to speak to you again, safe trip back to St. Mary. And we are also joined, in fact, I met this morning with Mr. Louis Barton, who is from the Association of Transport Owners and Operators. Mr. Barton, welcome to the Senate, sir, along with Mr. Liebert Todds, Mr. Wilfred Fletcher, and Ms. Diane Ennis from the Transport Operators Development and Sustainable Services. Welcome to the Senate. And I just wish to place on record that I met with you this morning, and I welcome the opportunity to dialogue with you and recommend at all times, where possible, dialogue. Thank you very much and welcome all of you to the Senate. Statement by ministers.
Mr. President, that's a clarification here. I probably not see clarification with respect, hoping that the Minister of Education, Youth and Information would make a statement to this Honourable House, given the confusion that now exists in the public domain with the issue with the PEP model performance task results, where we have one set of information in the lower house and another information given at a press conference. I believe that I was hoping that the Minister would give a statement to clarify, if not today, if he could tell us, it's not too late for today, but at least next week, so the nation can have clarity and our children can have ease as they perform in their respective schools.
Announcements.
Laid on the table of the Senate today are the following: Minister Paper number 101 and Chief Justice's Statistical Report for the Easter term April to July 2018. Annual Report and Financial Statement of the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission for the year 2013-14. Excuse me. Annual Report of the Early Childhood Commission, Annual Report of the Jamaica Tourist Board for the year 26-2017, and Annual Report for the Tourism Enhancement Fund, TEF, for the year 2017-18.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Bills brought from the Honourable House of Representatives.
The following is a message from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. To the Honourable Senate. I have the honor to advise the Honourable Senate that on the 30th day of October 2018, the House of Representatives agreed to the Senate amendments to a bill entitled An Act to Repeal and Replace the Road Traffic Act to establish the Island Traffic Authority as the authority for the regulation and control of traffic on roads, to improve road safety and transport efficiency and reduce the cost of administering road transport, to create new categories of driver's licenses and for connected matters. I also have the honor to advise the Honourable Senate that on the 13th day of November 2018, the House of Representatives made 6 further amendments to the bill, which deserves the concurrence of the Honourable Senate. And the amendments have been circulated for the members' information.
Mr. President, permission to speak from a seat not my own.
1 minute, please. I'm sorry, Minister. Go ahead, please. You have permission to speak from a seat other than your own.
Thank you, Mr. President. I beg to give notice that the House of Representatives further amendment to the bill shortly entitled the Road Traffic Act 2018 be considered and approved at a later date. This, Mr. President, will allow for some more public education and consultation.
Just to clarify, Mr. President, these 6 amendments, are they amendments of the Senate amendments, or these are brand new amendments coming from the House? We sent, just to clear, Mr. President, when the bill came to the Senate, there were 161 amendments. When it came from the Senate, there was 130 other amendments going back down. So what I'm wondering, if these are new amendments, are they after 130 sent by the Senate to the House, or are these brand new amendments being made by the House? Brand new provision being made by the House, being sent to the Senate. Just to clarify, so I could be clear on it.
The answer, I think the answer is supposed to be no. Okay. Can I assist you? Based on what? Apparently there are new amendments. But the petitions, papers, reports from committees, notices of motions given orally, questions and answers to questions, motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice, motions relating to the sitting of the Senate, motions for leave to introduce bills, the presentation of bills without the leave of the Senate first obtained, public business. Minister?
Mr. President, today we intend to continue the State of the Nation debate, and today we'll only have one presentation, and that's from Senator Floyd Morris, and we now invite him to make his presentation. And the usual 40 minutes, of course, we'll obtain. Thank you very much.
You don't know one word in this road traffic bit, so we could not do it.
He could not take it.
Just before you start, Senator Morris, just for information for our visitors, Senator Floyd Morris is continuing making his presentation today in what is referred to as the State of the Nation debate. So I now recognize him. Senator Morris.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues, for your continued support. And Mr. President, I rise to make my contribution to the State of the Nation debate. And in doing so, I would like to express my profound appreciation to a number of individuals who have made it possible for me to be in this august institution for 16 years and counting. And I want to recognize former Prime Minister Patterson, who first reposed the confidence in me in 1998. Then former Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller, who reappointed me to the Senate in 2012. And the current leader of the opposition, Dr. Peter David Phillips,
Future Prime Minister,
for his confidence in allowing me to continue to serve in this institution. I want to acknowledge, Mr. President, the support that has been given to me by members of this Honourable Chamber on both sides, but I have to single out the leader of opposition business in the Senate for her continued confidence and guidance and support that she has given to me over the past couple of months that she has assumed responsibility and doing an excellent job in guiding the team on this side. No, I don't have a phone. Not my phone. Mr. President, I also could not stand here, Mr. President, without acknowledging the tremendous support given to me by my wife, Shelley-Ann. And when I was getting dressed this morning, she told me to tell the Senate that she is not responsible for my dressing. She might play other roles, but she knows that when I decide that I am going to wear particular colors, that not even she can change my mind. So, you know, I have been blessed, Mr. President, and I am deeply grateful to God for His guiding hands in my life. Mr. President, I stand here today having listened the public discussions relating to the state of our nation. And based on the discussions taking place in the public sphere, I decided that I'm going to caption my presentation, Progress, a Higher Order over Prosperity. And Mr. President, I've decided to do so because of a number of misconceptions that exist out in the society relating to both concepts. But in order to do justice to this theme that I've chosen, Mr. President, I want to remind us briefly of where we are coming from as a country the origins of our political formation. Because in 1938, men and women joined together for a march to build what was regarded then as a new Jamaica. And it was then we saw the birth of Jamaica's labor and modern political movement. In fact, it was that year that the People's National Party was formed. Mr. President, the political parties in their early stages forged collaborative relationship with their British counterparts. In fact, the British political parties played a pivotal role in shaping the philosophical perspectives of both political parties in Jamaica, with the People's National Party identifying with the British Labour Party and the Jamaica Labour Party identifying with the British Conservative Party. Now, Mr. President, in forging that relationship, the beliefs of those political parties came a part of the local political organization. So you find that the People's National Party became a liberal political organization and the Jamaica Labour Party a conservative political organization. And with that fundamental belief in the scheme of politics, they have certain views. For example, liberals emphasize freedom and in so doing the civil liberties. On the other hand, conservatives emphasize order. But I want to state, Mr. President, it is not to say that liberals don't believe in order and conservatives don't believe in freedom. It is the priority that they place on each. So, Mr. President, both political organizations have a fundamental belief in democracy. And that is something that we can appreciate about the state of our nation over the past 80 years since we had our modern political movement. Both political parties embracing democracy, and that constitutes a critical intersectionality for our political process. Mr. President, coming out of these beliefs, there are some nuances that the political parties will introduce from time to time in order to distinguish themselves. So, for example, in today's society, and occupying the public sphere, are the concepts of prosperity and progress, with the governing side embracing prosperity, and we on this side embracing progress. And, Mr. President, I decided that I was going to consult the political encyclopedia to get a definition of both. And here is what I came across in the definition, Mr. President. prosperity is seen as the state of flourishing, thriving, good fortune, or successful economic status. Progress is the idea that advances in science, technology, and social organizations can produce an improvement in the human condition and therefore that of entire societies and humanity in general, can improve in their social, political, and economic structures. That's the definition of the two concepts, progress and prosperity. And from the definition, Mr. President, it is clear to me that progress is a higher order over prosperity. And we on this side, Mr. President, unequivocally embrace progress. Mr. President, it is because of our belief in progress. It is because of our belief in progress why over the years we have embraced education as a fundamental means of social transformation. And Minister, I want to say to you that I support your current efforts and your position and your stance on no auxiliary fee. But the fact of the matter, Minister, is that you are yet to reach the highest point that we have taken this country in terms of education, in terms of granting universal free education. And based on some developments that are taking place in our society today, I don't think we are likely to reach there, certainly under this administration. And let me tell you why I say so, Minister. Because I said earlier, I support your stance on no auxiliary fee at the secondary level and at the primary level. But what is the situation at the tertiary level? This is very disturbing for me, Mr. President, because I have been reliably informed that at the University of the West Indies, for example, there are some serious issues or difference between the government and the institution as to how much it owes, with the government saying that it owes no money to the institution. And it is all based on an established agreement whereby students are supposed to pay 20% of the economic cost and the government pays 80%. And from the time, Senator Sabuda, when I was involved with the Guild of Students as Deputy Hall Chairman for Taylor Hall, and then as advisor to the Guild in 1996, there was that established mechanism for for sharing the economic costs. But what happened, I understand, that is in about 2008 thereabout, there was some difficulties, some economic challenges, and the government started to pay a one-off grant to the institution. And over time, that debt to the institution has accumulated. And we are now hearing that the government is saying they don't owe the institution any money. Now I want to find out from the minister if this is true, and if this is so, have we abandoned that 80-20 split in terms of the sharing of the economic cost? And if that is so, what does that mean for fees for students at the institution? Because if we are going to see an abolition of that 80-20 ratio, there is likely to be a significant increase in tuition fees for students at the tertiary level. And already we are seeing students being deregistered from the institutions because of inability to pay.
Some can register,
and some of them can't register.
So the minister agreed that they should.
So, no, Minister, I am asking some questions, Minister. So, if it is that what I am asking is incorrect, I am expecting you, I'm giving you an opportunity to make a definitive statement to our country as to what is the situation in terms of funding tertiary education and honoring the debt to the University of the West Indies. Mr. President, it is because of our belief in progress that we have engaged over the years in the most massive construction of roads. And I want to stress that because, Mr. President, I hear recent discussions where individuals trying to rewrite history as it relates to building of infrastructure in our country. The fact of the matter is, Mr. President, from about 1997 to about 2007, we witnessed the construction over 300 miles of road from Negril to Port Antonio. And then we witnessed over 50 miles of road being built in the North-South Highway, which I understand that the road has been, the highway has been renamed. And then there is the highway which connects St. Catherine to Clarendon. Again, another significant highway. So take, for example, Mr. President, Senator Slowly drove about 200 miles from Montego Bay to come to Kingston. It's not some. Tell me the correct mileage then. I say about. I say about. But whatever is the mileage, Mr. President, to put it in the current Minister of Finance words, he drove on significant carpeted roads. And those carpeted roads were built between 1997 and 2007. And you know, Mr. President, what I find amazing is I hear a lot of comments about the current road construction in Kingston, which was conceptualized in a previous administration, and also the funding, Mr. President. Mr. President, you must protect me, you know, because I am addressing you.
I'm not going to.
Mr. President.
I'm not going to offer you no protection. Just to correct one thing. The Minister of Finance did not say carpet, he said carpet.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Mr. President. But, Mr. President, you know, I did some checks to find out what is the total mileage of the roads being constructed from Constant Spring down to Hagley Park over into Mandela, and I was told that it has not exceeded 20 miles. So when I compare that in comparison to the highway from Negril to Port Antonio and from Ocho Rios to Kingston, significant difference. But whatever it is, Mr. President, in the words of the Finance Minister, it is carpeted road. Mr. President, but one of the things that I noticed upon my visit to the current construction of the roads that are taking place, which they are not highways based on what you are saying then, right? Because Constant Spring Road is not a highway, right? Now, one of the things that I've noticed is that we are not capitalizing on a window of opportunity. And what is that window of opportunity, Mr. President? The window of opportunity is to make, Minister, the sidewalks more accessible to persons with disabilities. And I am calling upon the government. I am calling upon the government to make sure that in this process of in this process, Mr. President, to make sure that the sidewalks are fully accessible. And when I say fully accessible, I'm talking about removing the light poles that JSPSCO have constructed in the middle of the sidewalks across the city. Move them to the side to make sure that they are accessible to wheelchair users and persons who are blind. And I want to see it right down from Constant Spring down to Hagley Park, right into Portia Simpson Miller Square. Because if we are talking about building and transforming the society and making it accessible and inclusive for persons with disabilities, we have to grab all the opportunities that presents to us. It is because of our belief in progress, Mr. President, why over the years housing has been a priority for our administration. In the 1970s, we established the National Housing Trust that has been responsible for making hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans proud homeowners. And then in the 1990s, again, we introduced another initiative, the Operation Pride, to provide land and housing to individuals. And Mr. President, if you doubt what I am talking about, Mr. President, where housing is concerned, you just want to check Melrose News in Manchester, or you go to Mona and look at Pines of Karachi, and you'd see what it is that we have done with housing. But you know, and those are just two examples that I have cited. Mr. President, I recently...
I don't, I don't want the interruptions to reach a point where I have to intervene again. Because I've offered Senator Morris an easy wicket to bat today. And I don't want any interruption, either from this side or from Senator Brown and Senator Skeffrey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, I have seen and I've heard the government announce different housing initiatives. And the latest that I have heard is a $500 million investment for social housing, which is something, it is not a novel development. It's not a novel development. But I appreciate the initiative nonetheless because it is targeting the most vulnerable within our society. But in doing so, Mr. President, I am making an appeal for persons with disabilities who are amongst the most vulnerable within our society and are in dire need of housing support. And I am hoping that some of those houses will be built for persons with disabilities. Mr. President, it is because of our belief in progress why we establish an institution like the National Health Fund. Because we believe that our population must be subject to quality health care. And this is why we established that initiative to give support to thousands of Jamaicans in terms of their health care. And I want to, at this point in time, again, Mr. President, make an appeal to the government on behalf of persons with disabilities, because the National Health Fund provides support for certain critical illnesses. I think it's about 15 of them. But one of the things that we have not taken into consideration is that a part of the medical treatment of persons with disabilities are the different assistive aids that they have to use. So, you know, a person who has an amputated leg will need a prosthesis. A person who is deaf will need support in terms of hearing aid. And I want to make an appeal to the government to expand the offerings to make sure that persons with disabilities who have to use these assistive devices can get some support through the National Health Fund, because it is a critical part of their medical treatment. Mr. President, it's because of our belief in progress why we introduced the PATH program. And I was very proud to be the minister to have implemented the PATH program in 2002. And what we did was to abandon some social programs that were in existence, such as the food stamp program, because that wasn't adding any value to the Jamaican society as such. So what we did was we decided to introduce a conditional cash transfer program where we link the benefit to some critical social indicators, that of health and education. And Mr. President, at the time, we were targeting 236,000 individuals for the PATH program, with the intention of reducing it over time because we anticipated that life would get better for the Jamaican people. And Mr. President, today, the figure is at about 380,000 individuals. This is about 150,000 more than what was the threshold at the time. Now, if it is, we are talking about, if it is that your administration is talking about prosperity, then the numbers are going in the wrong direction, because we are seeing an increase. We are seeing an increase in the number of individuals on the PATH program, when it should be reversing. So, Mr. President, but one of the things that I want to point out fundamentally where the PATH program is concerned is the fact that we still have a serious gap in terms of social workers on the PATH program. And I have been talking about this all the time in this Senate. You cannot have a program of this nature without having adequate social workers to do the case management of the program. And that is why you have so many individuals who are deemed non-compliant on the program. And Minister, we have debated in this Senate from time to time about the situation of crime and the government's initiative to fight crime. And I hear mention of increases in the number of police to be on the streets. But I put it to you, Minister, that if it is that we are going to deal with the crime problem on a sustainable basis, we need to get more social workers in the system, because some of the crimes that are being committed are domestically related. If we had sufficient social workers in the system, I am certain that there would be assistance in the communities for these individuals to deal with some of the problems that they are confronted with. And so, what?
Senator Morris, the senator's time has expired.
Mr. President, the members' time having been expired, we now ask for the member to be given some additional 10 minutes to complete his presentation.
The question is that the speaker's time be extended to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those in favor? Against? And Senator Morris, just before you rise, we have been joined by quite a few numbers from members of staff and students from the Carteret College.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and welcome to the student from the Carteret College, which is the school of that Senator Skeffrey taught a couple of years ago. So Mr. President, I believe that we need to increase the number of social workers in the system, because it will serve dual benefits in terms of improving the PATH program and at the same time assisting in dealing with our spiraling crime rate. Mr. President, Mr. President, it is because we believe in progress. It is because we believe in progress that we introduced a number of legislation to protect the most vulnerable within our society. Legislation that we have enacted to protect our children. And the last such legislation that was passed in this parliament was in 2014 when we passed the Disabilities Act. And Mr. President, I have spoken on a number of occasions about the need for us to implement this legislation. And I'm aware of initiatives by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to put the minister in a position to set the effective date for the legislation. But the fact of the matter is, Mr. President, it cannot be that 4 years have elapsed since the Parliament, this Honourable Chamber, passed the Disabilities Act, and we have not yet seen the implementation of the legislation. And we need to move with alacrity to make sure that the Disabilities Act is implemented. Mr. President, it is because of our belief, in progress why on this side we do not support state of emergencies as a crime fighting tool. And we have said it from time to time because, Mr. President, it constitutes a violation of the fundamental rights and freedoms of our citizens. Only this week, I heard a damning report from the public defender where she pointed out to the level of abuse and disease that are conflicting the individuals who are being held in custody. And I say, Mr. President, we have to move with alacrity to ensure that we release these individuals if we have nothing against them, so that they can exercise their freedom as stipulated in our Constitution. Mr. President, it is because of our belief in progress why we introduced the Economic Recovery Program in 2012. And I made sure that I mentioned this, Mr. President, because it is important. As I have heard a number of the discourse taking place publicly without giving any credit to the effort of the previous administration in terms of laying the foundation for what we are seeing in Jamaica today. The fact of the matter is, Mr. President, the fact of the matter is, Mr. President, that up to 2012.
No, point about it. Roy, I need to hear Senator. No, I don't.
Mr. President, in 2012, we had some serious challenges in terms of negotiating with the IMF, because the IMF said that we had serious difficulties with the previous standby agreement, and based on that, there were some stringencies in terms of what was required to get a new agreement with that institution. And it had to take the intervention and involvement of senior individuals from overseas to help in terms of ensuring that Jamaica get an IMF agreement. And in that IMF agreement, Mr. President, among other things, we had a clear strategy of reducing the debt, which had reached over 140% of GDP. And Mr. President, I hear the Prime Minister saying that this year we are going to be dipping below 100% in terms of the debt to GDP. But the fact of the matter is that this was a part of the scheduled agreement that came over from 2012. So what we are seeing is a fulfillment of those targets that were set from the 2013 IMF agreement that was established. And Mr. President, we have to set the record straight. We have to set the record straight. But you know, Mr. President, there is something that is concerning to me that I want to bring to the public attention in terms of the state of our nation. Because the other day, I saw the currency devaluing to the point where it reached $137 thereabout. And the truth is that I saw my friend Senator Samuda was very nervous about what was taking place. All right? And I heard the Minister of Finance saying that he was going to ask the Bank of Jamaica what was happening in terms of the depreciation of the currency. But at the same time, I heard that the administration had some problems in terms of one of the critical targets for the IMF in terms of inflation. Now, when I heard it, I started to wonder, is there a connection with the depreciation of our currency and the inflation target? And an economist said to me that there is. But, Mr. President, Mr. President, I have seen subsequently, well, when the dollar was devaluing, we saw individuals increasing the price of goods and services in the country, Senator Webby. There was increases taking place. But the dollar has, and they attributed it to the fall in the Jamaican dollar. But subsequently, we have seen the dollar revalued, moving from 137 to it is just about 127 now. 126. Yes. And I appreciate the, yes, and Senator Samuda, I appreciate the applause, Mr. President. But since we have seen a revaluing of the Jamaican currency, we must see a subsequent reduction in the price of goods and services for the Jamaican people. Because it cannot be that we are talking about an administration for prosperity, and then the dollar devalues, prices are increased, and then we see a revaluation of the country, but yet still prices remain at the old prices that were under the devalued currency. It is just not fair, and we need to see serious reduction in the prices of these goods so that we can ease the burden on the Jamaican people. So, Mr. President, when I look at the programs and policies that we have implemented over the years, cumulatively, in terms of education, in terms of housing, in terms of health care, in terms of the economic reform program, in terms of legislation to protect the poor and the most vulnerable. I have to come down on the side of progress because progress constitutes a higher order over prosperity. Because we are talking about a comprehensive improvement in the quality of life of our Jamaican people. So much so, Mr. President, that by 2007, data from the Planning Institute of Jamaica showed the poverty rate just below 10%. And this is coming down from 32% in 1989. So indeed, Mr. President, we had seen a significant improvement in the quality of life of our Jamaican people. And that is because of progress. And so, Mr. President, I'm not going to put up with it, Secretary. As I close, Mr. President, Mr. President, I'm disappointed that the leader of government, the acting leader of government business is disturbing my presentation the way that he has, because it is uncharacteristic of him. Mr. President, it is clear that there are differences between the two sides. And it is manifested in how the government conceptualizes prosperity and how we view progress. And Mr. President, undoubtedly, well, I am here to represent the opposition. Yes, I am here to represent the opposition. Mr. President, the fact of the matter is that we on this side and the political organization of which we are a part have made significant contribution to the advancement of Jamaica. And we will continue to do so because we believe that our philosophical views anchored in democratic socialism, yes, and manifested in our views on progress, and manifested in our views on progress. We will continue to make our contribution to the advancement of our nation. God bless you, and God bless Jamaica land we love, Mr. President. Yes. Yeah, man. Thanks.
Very powerful.
Thanks, bro.
Very powerful.
You disturb the class, man.
Mr. President, I think that concludes the business of the day. And we now move for the adjournment of the sitting of the Senate for date to be fixed.
Mr. President, I thought the notice said that Senator Samuda was going to be speaking today. They disrupted Senator Morris so much, yet they are wasting the opportunity to respond today. I don't understand why.
Thank you very much. I just want to address the students and teachers who have come from out of the corporate area, specifically as far away as St. Elizabeth and St. Mary. Please ensure that you drive safely home. We're finishing early today after a very interesting presentation by Senator Morris, which I hope you all appreciated. The National Gallery is available for a visit. If you have, no man. The National Gallery is available for visit. If your teachers find that you have an extra hour in town, please go down to the National Gallery. It will be free. Just go down there and have a walk around before you head back to your school. And if anybody asks you, who tell you that it's free, tell them the President of the Senate said that you are to go in there free. Question is that the Senate be adjourned for a date to be fixed. Those in favor? Against? This Honourable Senate now stands at
Say it. Government not working. Say it.
Our Caribbean islands are truly blessed with the beauty of nature in all her splendour. From our fringing coral reefs to our sparkling rivers and spectacular waterfalls, right up to our majestic rainforests.